So my first video didn't record or upload or something. So we are working with this one right now. What we have here is our warm-up. So I asked the students to find the value of the discriminant and describe the number and type of roots. So the given was x squared plus 4x minus 4 is equal to 0. We went through that, gotten 32 with 2 real roots. Did the same thing over here, got 0, 1 real root. And we solved each equation by using the quadratic formula. So we got -5 and 6 here. And then, oh, let me scoot that up, sorry. And then this one over here gave us 4 plus or minus the square root of 2. And then this one said solve using any method. X squared minus 64 is equal to 0. I personally would have done factoring first because it's a difference of perfect squares. You could have done the square root. You could have even done the quadratic formula. This one turned out to be a lot more work than just factoring. Okay? All right. So today, or this evening, as the case may be, we are going to, not quite sure why it's so bright. But then, anyway, so we're going to be working on completing the square. Okay? So it's similar to what we've already done. Okay, so if I said to you, what is the square, how do you solve for x for this one? Well, we would just take the square root and we'd say x is equal to plus or minus 5. Okay, we would also do something like this. Again, we take the square root, we get x minus 4 plus or minus 6. So we'd have x is equal to 4 minus 6, or x is equal to 4 plus 6, so x is equal to -2, x is equal to 10. Okay, we could even end up with stuff like this where we have x minus 2 squared is equal to 20. We take the square root. X minus 2 is equal to, well, that's 4 and 5, square root of 2, or square root of 4 is 2. So we'd have 2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 5. So then we would add 2 to that, and we'd have plus or minus 2 square roots of 5, and that would be our exact answer. Okay, so we could do it both those, any of those ways. So when we're completing the square, our goal is actually to get it to look something like these two here. All right, so we've got about 6 steps to look at, and I'm just going to write those steps down and then give us our examples. Okay, so number 1 is we're going to move our constant C to the other side. All right, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Number 2 is we're going to factor our lead coefficient, that's our A, if it is not already 1. Okay, so our goal is to get A to be 1. Makes life easier for us. All right, the next one is we take B and we times it by 1/2. Okay, and then we're going to take our answer from step number 3 and we're going to square it. And then number 5 is we take our answer from number 4 and add it to both sides. Okay, and then we're going to factor and solve. That's our steps. Okay, so let's start with, let's push this up so we can have that. So let's start with x squared plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. All right, so Move the constant c to the other side. This is the c I'm talking about. So I'm going to minus 3 to both sides. So I'm going to get x squared plus 4x is equal to negative 3. Okay? So then the next one says, factor lead coefficient A if it is not already 1. Well, our lead coefficient is 1, so I don't need to worry about doing step number 2. All right? Step number 3 says to take B, which is 4, we times it by a half, which is 2. And then we take our answer and we square it, which is 4. And then we're going to add that 4 to both sides. Okay? So then we get x plus 2 squared. I'm factoring that. And negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Okay? Then I take the square root of both sides. So I have x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1, which is 1. And I'm going to have x is equal to negative 2 minus 1. Or I'm going to have x is equal to negative 2 plus 1. So it's either negative 3 or negative 1. Okay? So that was our first example. Now the cool thing is this value right here, once we divide it by 2, when we set up our factoring, it's actually right there as well. Okay? Okay. So our second example is going to be x squared plus 8x minus 4 is equal to 0. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So x squared plus 8x is equal to 4. I'm going to take 8, multiply it by a half, which is 4. And then I'm going to square 4, which is 16. So I add 16 to both sides. So this gives me 20, and I'm going to factor this. So it's going to be x, here's the 4, plus 4 squared. Okay? So then I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I have x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus 2 square roots of 5, because 20 is 4 times 5. I can take the square root of 4 and the square root of 5. So the square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 5 is going to be square root of 5. So then I'm going to go x, subtract my 4. And my answer is x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus is 2 times the square root of 5. That's our problem, and we're done with that one. Okay. Our next one is going to be x squared plus 3x minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay. So we're going to take x squared plus 3x is equal to 6. I add 6 to both sides. My coefficient is 1. So I'm going to take 3 times it by a half, which is 3 halves. If I square that, it's going to be 9/4. Okay, so I go plus 9/4 plus 9/4. Okay, so then x plus, now don't freak out, because remember, this value right here is our factored term. Okay, and then you can just go to your calculator. You're just going to go 6 plus 9. Yes, 9/4, which is 33/4. Okay, and then I take the square root. So I get x plus 3 halves is equal to plus or minus the square root of 33/4. Now I'm going to review a little bit real quick on this one right here. Okay, I can break this down so that I have the square root of 33 over the square root of 4. So then that's going to give us, because the 33 doesn't break down, but the square root of 4 is 2. So then I can come over to here and I'm going to say x minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 33. And because the denominator here is 2 and the denominator here is 2, I can put it all under the same denominator like that. And that would be our Final answer. Okay. All right. So then number 4, we have 2x squared minus 4x minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay. So I'm going to add 6. 2x squared minus 4x equals 0. Equals 6. Okay. I can see that I have this is not a 1, so I need to factor it. So I'm going to factor out a 2. So I get 2 times x squared minus 2 times x squared minus 2x equals 6. So then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So then I have x squared minus 2x is equal to 3. Well, I take 2, divide it by 2, which is 1, square that, which gives me a plus 1, plus 1. So then I have x squared minus 1 is equal to 4. And then I'm going to go with, excuse me. So then I'm going to go take the square root. I'm going to have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus 2. So I have x is equal to 1 minus 2, or I have x is equal to 1 plus 2. So I have negative 1, or I have positive 3. Okay. Then I think if I rush through this one, we'll have time for one more. Okay. So we have 2x squared minus 4x. That's the same one I just did. Number 5 is 2x squared minus 8x minus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, got to go quick. So I have 2x squared minus 8x is equal to 3. I'm going to factor out a 2 and divide. So I'm going to have x squared minus 4x is equal to 3 halves. Take the 4, divide by 2, end up going plus 4. So I have x minus 2 squared, and then 3 halves is going to be 11 halves. Okay. Take the square root of that. I have x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus 11 square roots of 2. Now we can't have a radical in the denominator, so I need to rationalize it by taking and multiplying it by the square root of 2 to both top and bottom. So then my numerator becomes the square root of 22. I have a pair here, so it just becomes 2. And then I'm going to add 2, which gives us plus or minus radical 22 over 2. And we want to try and get this under the common denominator, so I'm going to times this by 2. So I get 4 plus or minus the square root of 2, or the square root of 22, all over 2, with time to spare. All right. So the other thing I did do for those guys is I did show them answers from their homework. So number 1 was negative 1 and 5. So make sure you work through that. And then number 10, you should get negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 66 over 3. And then come in tomorrow with some awesome questions. Thanks.